What happened to the Republican Party? On Saturday, here in Washington, D.C., and Danielle, if Kamel calls in, please let me know. I want to just toss him right on the air right away when he calls in. Saturday, here in Washington, D.C., there was, we were out walking around, and there was this big kerfuffle. The Capitol building got shut down. There was, police cars everywhere. It was just, it was couple of hours in the afternoon, but if you D.C., you knew that something was going on. And if you heard the news reports, what you would have heard is that he committed suicide, shot himself in the head in front of the U.S. Capitol building. Walked up to the U.S. Capitol building with a backpack and pulled out a gun and shot himself in the head. End of story. No droids in that car. Just, keep on moving along. What was, to the best of my knowledge, not reported particularly extensively anyway in the press, was that this guy was holding a sign when he committed suicide that said, "Tax the 1%. Now, you'll remember that a leader in Tunisia was angry with his government's confiscatory policies toward people at the bottom of the economic heap, basically, tax cuts for billionaires. There's some very wealthy people in Tunisia and a lot of very poor people. And that a street vendor in Tunisia set himself on fire and died in protest of this, and that ignited the Arab Spring, arguably. So here's a guy who did essentially the same thing. He goes to the center of power and commits suicide. Instead of setting himself on fire, he shot himself in the head. But he's holding a sign that says "Tax the 1%." This is an article over at by 33 1/3 over at Daily Kos. 33 1/3 writes. On the kind of beautiful sunny day when hope springs eternal, an older gentleman wearing a backpack walked over to the fountain in front of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And a sign, according to people who saw him, it said simply, "Tax the 1%. The police captain on the scene who addressed the news cameras eerily avoided the question, mumbling that it was something about social justice, as if he were annoyed to address specifics. We don't know the guy's name. A dog run over by a car might have gotten more respect and news coverage than this unknown man." And 3 1/3 says, "What kind of society have we become? A man decides to commit suicide as an act of political courage, both the police and the media as unworthy of further examination." How would Americans react to this story if it was widely publicized? That people are killing themselves with signs that say "Tax the 1%. Which takes us to what's happened to the Republican Party. The Republican Party in the 1850s, 1860s, was a progressive reform party. Within a decade and a half, by the mid-1870s, the party of Lincoln had been, by and large, there were still some radical Republicans. Thaddeus Stevens was still around. There were still, the guys who were working against slavery. That was their big issue, and working for social. And keep in mind, Abraham Lincoln built the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, it were actually built by and large, 5 large railroad corporations. But Lincoln supplied the money, gave them, through eminent domain, billions in today's dollars worth of free land to run the railroad so it could go from coast to coast. Lincoln created the land grant college system in the United States so that anybody who wanted to go to college for free could. This was a progressive party. But the Republican Party has been taken over by the billionaires. I mean, it's really just that simple. There's I can't think of any other way to just, fundamentally say it. Dana Milbank, writing in the Washington Post, he says, "Give credit to Republicans in Congress. They've discovered belatedly that income inequality is a problem And they're no longer proposing giving tax breaks to the wealthiest 2% of Americans. Now they're proposing to give tax breaks to the wealthiest 0.2% of Americans. Yep, that's the Death Tax Repeal Act of 2015, which is coming up today in the House of Representatives, which I've already, ranted about at some length. But this is what has happened. I thought this was an interesting post by Cali, C-A-L-I, over at it says, okay, I take it back. When I wrote a few months ago that I wouldn't vote for Hillary if she's the nominee, someone in the long thread, I forget who, said to me confidently that I would, in the end, vote for her. Whoever you were, it didn't take getting to the end. I'll hold my nose and vote for her. I keep thinking about what would happen if a Republican wins the White House and if Repubs, which they almost surely will, retain control of the House and perhaps the Senate. The obvious, a truly heinous and backward-looking Supreme Court. Okay. But going back to my notion of basically in the Republican Party, you've got the billionaires, you got the paid shills for the billionaires, politicians, and the commentators, and you've got the suckers that they bring along with things like hating gays, hating black people, hating anybody who might want to take away their gun, that kind of thing. So the list that Cali says, okay, if we get a Republican president, you're going to get more tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy. Well, those are the people who fund the Republican Party. Shredding the social safety net, that helps the funders of the Republican Party. You're going to have war, that helps the funders of the Republican Party. A nail in the coffin of women's reproductive rights, that's a sop to the suckers, the misogynistic suckers. Increase in the intrusion of religion in all aspects of public life, that's the suckers, who think that the Republicans care about their religion. They don't. They just, they need them to vote for them. Significant increase in the already bloated defense budget, that's the funders of the Republican Party. And substantive weakening of environmental laws. They'll gut the EPA. That's the funders of the Republican Party. If you could identify any group within the Republican Party that's not one of those three, I would love to hear it.